So in this video, I'm going to show you how to implement TanStack Form to create a dynamic form. So as you can see, we have this dynamic form. First, we have the project name. This is not dynamic, so we can put like next.js. But as you can see on the bottom right here, for the team member, we can add person and even we can remove that. So for example, we have just person 1 in here. I can put name, for example, Bob, and age, let's do 12, and the email. As you can see, we also implement the validation using Zod. As you can see in here, we have the error message, invalid email format. So I can do bob@mail.com. But as you can see on the bottom right here, we have a real-time value when I typing any value inside the input. For example, on this name, I can remove that. As you can see in here, this is real-time. I can change that to Jake, for example. This is real-time, right? If I click submit form, as you can see, we have the value on the alert from the browser. I can add person. As you can see here, I can do John Doe, right? I can do 27. And for the email, I can say john@mail.com. Great. We have 2 people right now. I can also remove the Jake, for example. It's just remove that. Amazing. So basically, it's really easy to implement dynamic form like this using TanStack Form. So let's get started. So let's generate React TypeScript project with Vite. So we can do npm create Vite add letters and the name of the project, and then use the React.js template. Here I'm going to do cd to that folders and open it inside Visual Studio Code. So now let's install and set up setcn in this Vite application. It's really easy. You can just follow all this instruction right here. Alright, so after you follow all the instruction right here, how to install setcn in the Vite application, now let's try to install a component from setcn. We can do npx setcn, and I'm going to do add, and what the component that I'm going to install is basically button and input and also label, also card component. So let's hit enter. It will basically clone the component. So let's try to use -- force. Now it will create the components UI, and as you can see here, we have the button component, card, input, and label. Great. So now let's try to run it. npm run dev. And then I just want to try to first create the really simple UI, right? I'm going to create another component folders, component file, and the component folders. I'm going to call this dynamic. Let's do form example. .tsx like this. So let's generate RFC for the function component, and for the name I'm going to do dynamic form example. Let's try to import the component into the app.tsx right here. I just want to remove everything and just try to return that dynamic form example. All right, so let's remove the use state and everything on the top right here. We don't even need to use this app.css, just remove that. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to remove it. So now let's open the, I believe, localhost 5173. And as you can see, we have the dynamic form example. So I just want to copy and paste the UI form. And basically you can just see on the code on the GitHub, the link is going to be on the description. And also on the top, I just want to make sure that I import the component that I use from the setcn UI, right? I just copy and paste like this. So as you can see, I'm using button, input, label, and all the card right here. And also I create dummy people array, right? This is for dummy data that we mapping down here basically. So let's take a look. So in here, the first thing is we're wrapping everything inside a maximal width 4XL and setting that to the center with MX Auto. And also here we have this title and description basically, right? H1 and P tag, and also finally this is the form. The first thing is we have this project name field. So in here we have the label and the input, right? The label is project name, and as you can see in here, the reason I put HTML4 and ID with same value is because, let me show you right here. This is the result of the UI. If I click the label, as you can see, the input is focus or active, because we set the same name right here for the HTML4 and for the ID. So this for the team member card. As you can see, we have div, and also we have the heading 2 and also the button. I'm using display flags and justify between to make the heading to on the left and button on the right side. All right, this is what we have. And also in here, this is basically mapping the dummy people array. As you can see, I get the individual person right here and render that as a card title right here. So because the index starting from 0, that's why in here I add a +1, because I like to person 1 is going to be on the first time. As you can see in here, we have person 1 and person 2. And also in here, I checking if the dummy people.lang is more than 1, I show the remove button, right? So that's why in here we have the remove button. If I remove, for example, this second value, so now we just have one object in the array. Of course, now the remove button is not going to be shown because we have that condition, right? This condition right here. Okay, because by default, it should be always have one form. So the next thing is for the card content. As you can see in here, we have basically display grid. As you can see, by default is grid column 1. And for the medium and more, we have 3 columns. So that's why in here we have 1, 2, 3 column. Of course, this is going to be responsive because by default, it should be have a 1 column like this. Great. The another thing is I'm going to show you is we have the age and also we have the email input field. And the last thing is we have the button submit form. And here we go, right? This is the UI. Pretty simple. You can just copy and paste from the GitHub code that I'm going to put link on the description. So now we need to install the TanStack Form library. I'm going to copy this npm, copy that and open a terminal and then just paste that like this. And also for the validation, I'm going to use Zod. So I'm going to say npm install Zod. Okay, great. So let's running that again, npm run dev. So the idea for this project is basically we need to create form value like this format right here that have an object. And inside the object, we have project name, right? The project name value should be come from this input field right here, project name input field. And also we have people array, right? And in this case, we have one object that have name, age, and email. And of course, the value is based on the user input. If I have, for example, 2 person, of course, this should be have 2 object inside a people array like this, right? That's the goal basically. If I give any value on this input and click submit form, the format of the form value that I send, it should be look like this. And also we are going to implement all the validation on each field, like a name field, age field, email field, and etc. Like if I, for example, go to person 2 and remove the age right here, so it should be show error like age is required in this card 2 right here on the person 2. So that's the goal. So we are going to use, let me just scroll down. As you can see this one right here, we're going to use arrays. So this is basically the way we do that, right? With TanStack Form basically. So let's try to first create the form, right? We need to create form and then use form like this. Let's go back. And then I think I just want to go in here inside the component. Let's try to say cons and then form set equals to use form. So in here, we need to put an object. So let's go back to documentation. We need to put default values. So I'm going to say default values. For the value of default values, I'm going to create variable on the top right here. I'm going to say cons default values, right? Set equals to an object. And inside that, we have the project name. By default is empty string. Also, we have people. By default, it just have one object that have name empty string, age 0, and email empty string. And because we have same name right here, it just mean default value set equals to default value, right? Because we have same name, we don't have to use this one. It also works. Nice. So because the first input is not array, it's just a single input field. As you can see in here, project name is just single input field, right? But people in here is array. So that's why we don't need to use this. Let me go back. We don't need to use this mode array in this first input field, which is project name. So we are going to go back to the basic concept and just using normal form field. So let's try to see how we use that. Here we have the field. So this is basically how we can use the normal form field. I'm going to copy all of that, go back in here, and under the project name field, I'm going to paste that like this, right? And the name in here is going to be project name, because we're setting that on the top right here. So that's why name is going to be project name. And inside the children, I just want to send this div right here, cut everything, and then just render that like this. Okay. And basically there's a couple way to render a children. First, we can use these children props. And then another thing is we can put this div as a children, right? So here I'm going to remove this slash, and then I'm going to do / from field, and then put this as a children. So I'm going to cut this object right here and just paste that like so. So I'm going to remove the children on the top, right? And here we go. This basically just do the same thing. So now inside the input component, we can send the value and also the on change. All right, the value should be field.state.value, and the on change should be grab the event and then running field.handle change, and then send this e.target.value. We can do like this, or you can just destructuring the state on the top right here. You can do like state, and then you also grab the handle change. This is just do the same thing. So I just want to remove the field in here. This is just do the same thing. So now let's work with the form array, which is this team member right here that we mapping these dummy people. So let's go back to documentation. I always suggest you to open the documentation of any technology you learn, because sometimes the technology is changed. That's why you always go to the documentation of that technology. So here we go. As you can see, this is basically how we can use the mode array on the form field. So I just want to copy everything in here and then paste that under the comment team member, just like this. And what we are going to render in here is basically everything right here, this div. So I just want to click this icon right here and try to cut that out and just paste that inside this function as a return JSX right here. As you can see, now we return that div. So basically now nothing happened. It's still working. It's just fine, right? So let's try to go back, and next thing is we need to map through the field state value. So I'm gonna copy this name, go back, and then basically we need to change the dummy people and paste that right here. Field state.value.map. Great. So now if I go back in here, now we should have just one person. The reason is because value now is just one. As you can see right here on the top, we have this one object inside an array. If I copy and paste that, maybe two, as you can see, now we have two person, right? You get the idea. So let's try to remove that one. And then now what we need to do next is let's try to go back to documentation and then just scroll it down. This is the way we add new field basically. So let's try to implement this field.pushValue. Let's try to copy this function and then go back to the code. And then in here, I just want to looking for the way we add person, which is this one right here. I'm going to paste that right here on the onClick event. As you can see, what happened is if I click the add person button, the function is running, which is field.pushValue, and we give it name, age, and then as you can see, we get an error here because we not send email in this case, right? Because email is required. So of course we need to send email in this push value as well. Okay, email is just empty string. Save that. Let's take a look. If I go back in here, try to add person, as you can see now, we can add many person we want, right? That's amazing. Let's try to go back to documentation and see, basically this is the way we change the input into the subfield. So let's try to see here. Basically we have this input, I believe, right here, right? We need to change this input to use this form.field. So let's just try to copy this everything in here. I'm gonna copy it and then go back, and basically what I'm going to wrapping is basically everything inside this div. So I'm going to make a comment in the top right here. I'm gonna say name field, and then just paste that under that comment just like this. And what we are going to put in this input right here is basically everything this div. I'm gonna cut that out and then just put that inside in here, just like this, right? So I just want to change the name right here. So I think the name in here is fine because this is basically just for label and input. It's not come from the TanStack form, right? So let's try to go back documentation, and we are going to put this value and on change. So I'm going to copy that, and let's go back in here and just paste that. So let's take a look. The value is going to become from the subfield, which is right here, right? Dot state dot value, and then on change should be running the subfield dot handle change and put this e.target.value. So how that we know this is works? That means the value when I typing something inside this name, it's just storing on the TanStack form. How that we know this is working? So basically we can debug the output of the input field. I just want to copy and paste the right here, right? Still inside the form, right? I just want to paste that like this. So this is basically the debug output. As you can see, I'm running form.subscribe. And then for the selector, I grab the state of values. And then here I grab the values and then just return right here inside the JSON.stringify. So we have beautiful format inside the pre-tag right here. So let's take a look here. As you can see, I'm going to refresh. The first thing is everything is just empty. Okay. So if I typing on the project name, as you can see, we have the real value and the current form values right here. Right, that's beautiful. We can do project. As you can see, this is real time. That's amazing. So inside the person one in here, I can do like John Doe. As you can see, the value is putting inside the name. So if I go to age, now it's not going to be works, right? On email also it's not working because we're not yet wrapping the age and email with the form dot field. As you can see, the age is not yet wrapping inside a form field and the email is not yet wrapping it. So let's try to just, I think I'm gonna copy everything in here, copy that and paste that down here. And then let's try to cut the age, which is this div right here. I'm gonna cut that out and then paste that right here, just like this. But make sure we change this name into age in this case. And also let's try to put the value and on change event. So I'm going to copy that and paste that inside the input, just like this. As you can see on the on change, basically we get this error. It's a argument of type string is not assignable to parameter of type update number. That is because this type of this input is number, but I set this as a string. So that's why I get an error. So the way we fix that is pretty simple. We need to parse this string into the integer. So we can say parse in like this and put the e.target.value inside the parse integer function. And now we good to go, right? Great. So let's take a look on the top right here. Oh yeah, we get an error because we not use this dummy people array again. Great. So let's try to go back and try to put a value like 12. As you can see now, the age is updated, right? Really, really nice. So let's try working with email right now. Let's go back and then we are going to copy and paste the age, right? Or I think the name right here is more simple, I believe. I'm going to copy that and then paste that down here. And now let's try to cut this email, right? All this div and then put that inside this form field, just paste like this. And also I'm going to change this into email in this case. And also I like to give a comment so you can see clearly. This is for name field. This is for age field. And the last thing is basically email field. Let's copy and paste the input, the value and on change event. So I'm going to copy this one and then paste that into the email field. Just paste like this. So now let's try go back. And then if I typing in here, John add, as you can see the value on the email here is updated. So let's try to add a person and I hope this is work. So let's try to click the add person. As you can see now we have 2 person, right? And here we go. We have this everything is empty string. So that's beautiful. I can typing in here everything I want and it's updated like this, right? Pretty cool. But the one thing that I see bug is because this age right here by default is 0. I don't want that. I want the age by default, it should be empty string. So how do we fix that? So let's try to see the age field, which is this one right here, right? This is basically the age field. And then basically the default value, I'm going to remove it. The default value, just remove it. And also the value in here, I'm going to put the value is, I'm going to say or empty string. And for the on change as well, I'm going to put the parse integer in here into the e.target.value, or I'm going to put 0. Okay, so let's try. Here, as you can see now, the age is basically empty string because I put this right here. Okay, great. So basically we don't yet handle the remove button functionality. As you can see, if I click add person, we can add new person in here, but we cannot remove that, right? So let's try go back to the code, and then basically let's find where we put the remove, which is right here. So the way we remove that, it's pretty simple. We need to just run this function right here, field.remove value, and put the index, just like this. So now I'm going to save that. Let's take a look. I'm going to put this one, person 1. This is going to be person 2, and this is going to be person 3. All right, so let's try to remove person 2, for example. I'm going to click that. As you can see, person 2 is gone. So now we just have person 1 and 3. Now let's remove the person 1, and now we just have person 3, right? It's working perfectly. And the next thing is, let's try to, I think I'm going to working with the submit form, because now when I click, it's not do anything. Let's try to scroll it down and see what we have in here. So where we put the submit, which is this one right here, right? So for now, it's not do anything. So basically, I just want to copy and paste the submit button functionality. As you can see, I'm going to explain for you. As you can see in here, we wrapping everything, which is this button, with this form.subscribe, just like we're doing on the debug output. So this is basically the way we get the value and the way we get the is submitting and get submit, etc. So as you can see in here, I get from the selector, I grab the state.can submit and state.is submitting. And also inside the children in here, I grab the can submit and is submitting and put the button. So in here, for the disabled value, I put the can submit is false, and then in here I just change the button based on the is submitting value, right? As you can see, this is really similar with the debug right here, but on the debug we get the values, but on the submit we get the can submit and is submitting, right? Just really easy. Let's try to save that, and then now of course if I click, nothing really happened because here we not specify this form should be have on submit event. So let's scroll up and let's take a look on the form tag. As you can see, the form tag now it doesn't have on submit event. So let's create that on submit. Set equals to it's gonna be like an event and just run like this. So in this on submit function, I can put this e.prevent default. This is basically to prevent a reload when I click submit, and also stop propagation. And finally, we're running this form.handle submit. Right, if this is run, basically the on submit inside of form here will running as well. So inside the use form, I can put on submit. As you can see, this is basically a async function that we can grab the value, and then in here I just simulate the API call that have a new promise with time 1000 millisecond for 1 second, and then in here I just console log the value and then alert that value with this JSON stringify value null and 2, so we have beautiful format. Okay, let's try. Here I'm going to typing a next.js project, and I'm gonna do name, let's say John Doe. For the age, I'm gonna do 26. Email, let's do john@mail.com. So as you can see, I'm going to click submit form, and then we have this submitting loading because we put promise. And then finally on the top right here, we have the data, right? We have the project name, next.js project, people, which is 1 people in here. Amazing. If I add another person for Jake, and then 45, say jake@mail.com. If I click submit, as you can see, now we have 2 people. So the last thing that I'm going to show you is we can add validation, because now if I refresh, let's try to make this everything empty. If I click submit, as you can see, it still submit the form. I need to have some validation for any field in here basically. So that's why we are going to use Zod to helping us to validate the form. So on the top right here, what I'm going to do, let's try to import Zod from the Zod. And then I create this really simple person schema. As you can see here, this basically import Z from the Zod. And I create person schema that have Z.object. And inside that we have name, age and email. This is basically specific for person schema, because in here on the person we have just name, age, and email. That's why I put name, age, and email, right? Name, it should be a string, it should be have minimal 1, and this is the error message, and the minimal is 2, this is the error message as well. So for the age should be number and have minimal 1, age must be at least 1, and the maximal is 120. And for the email, we have all these validation. So the next thing is, let's try to create the form schema. I'm going to paste this form schema. As you can see, we have z.object and project name. The project name is basically this input right here. And then after that, we have people. So this people, it should be inside the z.array, and we put the person schema, which is this one right here. And then for the error message, I'm going to say at least one person is required. Okay, great. So now we have that form schema. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to create type, I'm going to call that form data. So I'm going to paste that from here. As you can see, we have type form data and infer the type for this form schema, basically. All right, so now we can use the form data. So I'm going to put the type form data into the default values right here. So let's put form data just like this. As you can see, if I hover the type, it should be have project name, people, and etc. And then finally inside a use form, what I'm going to do, let's put these validators. And then for now, I'm going to use on change and then put the form schema, right? That's for the validators. And then basically, let's handle the way we render the error message on each field. Let's first go to the project name field, and under the input component, I'm going to paste this condition. So first I'm going to remove the field, right? Because we already grabbed the state right here. So we can running state.meta.error. If the length is more than 0, return this error message. And then I'm going to copy everything in here and go to the name field. Where is the name field? Down here. I'm going to paste that under the input component as well, just like this. But in here, we're using subfield, right? So I'm going to paste that like so. So subfield dot state, I believe, dot state dot meta, and it should be dot state dot meta as well. So let's try to copy this condition and then go to the age, and under the input, let's paste that like this. And also go to the email field under the input component, paste that. Great. So let's take a look. Now in here, I'm going to click submit form. And as you can see, we have error. That's beautiful. Let's try to refresh that again. Project name, I'm going to call this, as you can see, if I typing on the project name, all the input in here is show error. If you want something like this, it's fine. But I like to, for specific error, is show on the specific input that I typing. For example, I just typing on the project name. I like to, the error is just on the project name. So the name and age and email on the person is not going to be show any error because I'm not click that input. So the way we fix that is pretty simple. Let's try to first go to the project name field right here. And we are going to add the condition. So basically, I'm going to put the state, right? Let's do state dot meta dot is touch, I believe. So if I touch that specific project name, show this error. If not don't show any error, right? I just want to copy this and then go to the name. Where is the name field? Right here. So let's try to add that condition as well. So in here, we are going to use subfield.state basically like this, and then just copy this and then go to the age. I'm going to also paste that on this condition like this, and also go to the email, just paste that like this as well. Okay, great. Now let's try to refresh. Okay, now let's try to go to project name. If I typing, as you can see, if I remove, we have that project name is required. If I typing 1 character, project name must be at least 3 character. Great. If I go to name, if I do Chan, as you can see, I get error, name must be at least 2 character. Great. If I go to age, if I do 0, I cannot typing 0, as you can see, it's great. And also if I do, for example, email in here, say see, as you can see the invalid email format, I do a better format in here. Here we go. So I get the value on that current form value in here on the debug. So that's amazing. I can add person. I can do John Doe, age 34, email john@mail.com. As you can see, we have that value as well in here. I can remove. You can see we have John Doe. I can add person, say Jack, say 25. I do Jack at mail.com. As you can see, everything is just updated. Really, really cool. If I remove this on the top, of course, I cannot submit right now because the button is disabled. That's why in here we put this disable if we cannot submit. So that's beautiful. If I typing in here, let's do next.js project. If I click submit, as you can see, it's pending. And then after that, we have the value on the prompt right here on the alert from the browser. That's amazing. So I hope you learn a lot of things from this video, guys, because I believe this is really helpful for creating dynamic form using this TanStack form. It's more easy to implement that. So hope this is helpful. See you on the next video.